What is up, guys? So last week we did the best smartphones for around 200 bucks. Today I got the request to do under 200. So all of these are strictly under 200 bucks, all unlocked only. So let's go ahead and get started. All right, so first on the list, and my number one recommendation would be the G7. So you can pick this up for as low as 130. I've seen it. It's around 150 right now. The price kind of fluctuates, but yeah. You can find this even cheaper on eBay as well, but I'll put links down below. This is an awesome flagship phone. It's got the glass and metal design. It's IP68 dust and water resistant. It's got a really nice design that I actually really love. It feels really good in the hands. So it does have a 6.1 inch IPS display, 1440p 564 for the PPI. Basically, it's just a very sharp and high resolution display. Gives out some really nice colors as well for an IPS display. This does have Android 9 and will be getting Android 10. You do have the Snapdragon 845 and the Adreno 630. Basically what that means is that you can play games on high, no problem. This is a gaming beast for this price point. You have your expandable storage, and you also have 64 gigs of storage and 4 gigs of RAM built in. So the phone is pretty snappy. It hasn't really been laggy for me since I've been using it. Now you do have a dual camera setup. It's a 16 megapixel standard and a 16 megapixel ultra wide. Shoots in 4K, and the photos on here are really good, as you can see. Definitely for this price point, some of the best. You can even slap Gcam on here, and you do have an 8 megapixel front facing camera, which is pretty acceptable as well. So we have the headphone jack along with the quad DAC and some really great speaker on here. It's really nice speaker, one of the best single firing speakers you can get. And like I said, if you're really into audio, you got that quad DAC. Physical fingerprint scanner on the back, along with NFC for mobile payments. You have your 3000 milliamp battery with 18 watt fast charging and wireless charging as well. So as you can see, pretty much everything you could really want for under 200 bucks. Next is the Nokia 4.2. You can find this for 130. Like I said, links will be down below. This is a really great phone. I really love Nokia as a brand. They make some really solid phones. So you do have a glass back and plastic frame, so that's really nice to have glass on such a cheap smartphone like this. An IPS display, and this is kind of on the compact side with a 5.1, or not 5.1, 5.7 inch display with 295 for the PPI. It is a 720p display, and it looks decent from what I've seen. Not a whole bunch of complaints from what I've been reading. You do have Android 10 on here, and it has Android 1, so that means you will get updates pretty fast with this phone. Now you have the Snapdragon 439 and the Adreno 505, so it's not going to be a gaming beast. You will be able to do casual gaming, no problem though. Now you do have expandable storage, which is always nice at this price point. 16 gigs of internal and 2 gigs of RAM. You also have a 16 megapixel dual camera setup, a 13 megapixel standard, and a 2 megapixel depth. I wish it was an ultra wide, but it should be fine for just taking a quick snap. And you do have 1080p video and an 8 megapixel selfie camera. Of course, you have the headphone jack, and you do have NFC on the US model. The fingerprint scanner is on the back, and you do have a 3000 milliamp battery. So a very basic phone to do basic tasks on. You're not going to be doing any extreme gaming or stuff like that, but this is a basic smartphone. I really like this one. Next is the Moto G7 Play. So this one keeps bouncing around from like 130 to 150. The price fluctuates a lot with this one for whatever reason, but I really like this one. It's a super solid phone. So you do have the plastic design, which you know, it doesn't feel super premium. It's not gonna feel as good as the first two phones, but it's a decent design. I like it. You do have an IPS display. It's 5.7 inches. You also have a 720p display, and the display is actually really nice. It gives off some really bright and vibrant colors, and it does pretty decent outdoors. You do have Android 9 Pie, and this should get Android 10. It just might take a while. You do have the Snapdragon 632 and the Adreno 506, and from my gaming experience, it was pretty decent gaming. I was actually really surprised that it was actually able to keep up with Call of Duty Mobile and not drop frames. You do have expandable storage and 32 gigs of storage. You also have 2 gigs of RAM, and I know that doesn't sound like a lot, but this phone was not really lagging. I think that has a lot to do with stock Android, which is very nice. So you do have kind of acceptable cameras. If you're in good lighting, you can get a decent photo, no problem, with the 13 megapixel sensor on here. It does shoot 4K video, which is pretty nice for this price range. You also have a 8 megapixel selfie camera with the headphone jack. This one does not have NFC, but you do have 3000 milliamp battery with 10-watt charging on here. But this phone's battery life is actually pretty good. That's one of the highlights with this phone. So really good battery life, good display, and actually a good phone when it comes to performance. And so I don't know what it is with this phone in particular that people skip over. They just don't know about it. But this is also one of the best deals. It's next to the G7 if you want to ask me how I would arrange this. But this is an awesome phone for around 150, but the price does fluctuate. So it's 150 now, but it does jump a lot. So you do have actually a glass back on here, which is very nice. It's one of the more premium feeling phones. Very nice plastic frame. You do have a 6.3-inch display. It's actually a 1080p display, 409 for the PPI. Very beautiful, bright, very vibrant colors. Really like the display on here. You also have Android 9 with MIUI 11, the Snapdragon 660, and the Adreno 512. So this is a pretty decent phone when it comes to gaming as well. So you do have micro SD support with 32 gigs of internal storage and 3 gigs of RAM. So sometimes this phone will have animation lags because it's running the full version of MIUI 11, but it's a pretty snappy phone from what I've been seeing. So the highlight with this phone for this price point of under 200 bucks, the cameras are really great on here. You have a 48 megapixel wide and a 5 megapixel depth sensor, but it only shoots in 1080p. But the cameras on here are really good. Great dynamic range, great color science. I was really pleased with the photos for this price range. It probably has the best cameras on this list. So you do have a 13 megapixel selfie camera with a 3.5mm jack, as well as an infrared port, but this does lack NFC on here, so no mobile payments with this phone. You do have the fingerprint scanner on the back, which is pretty nice, and a very beefy 4000 milliamp battery with 18-watt fast charging. So this is really a great phone if you're really into Xiaomi phones and just want a good phone in particular. I would look at this one seriously. Last on the list is the iPhone 7. So for some reason, I just really like this phone. I use it more than the iPhone 11 that I have, and I think it has something to do with the size. I just really like the size of this phone. It's just super small for today. So you do have a aluminum back, aluminum frame, very solid feeling phone. It's IP67. It is the 4.7 IPS Retina display. It's a 720p display. It still looks pretty decent to me, and it gets pretty bright even for outdoor usage. So my favorite thing with this is you have iOS 13.4, so the latest version, and it runs really fast with the Apple A10 chip. So you can really game on here and do pretty much everything lag free. Pretty much just flies through iOS, which is crazy. Now you don't have any expandable storage, of course, but you do have 32 gigs of internal storage and 2 gigs of RAM, so you're not going to be downloading a whole bunch of stuff. These days 32 gigs is not that much, but you do have pretty acceptable cameras on here as well. Like 12 megapixel main, shoots in 4K, a 7 megapixel selfie camera, and you can get some really good shots if you're outdoors. So the cameras on here for this price point are pretty decent still. You also have stereo speakers, which are pretty loud as well. So you do have the NFC for your mobile payments, the Apple Pay, the fingerprint scanner on the front of the device. Now battery life isn't all that great on here. It's 1060 milliamps. It's okay. It'll get you through the day, but you're definitely gonna have to be charging it. But yeah, that's pretty much it, guys. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.